Good evening, everyone. It's time to conclude the Performing Arts Market in Seoul 2021 and talk with you about how we are getting prepared for the PAMS 2022. Welcome to the closing event. See you again at 2022 PAMS. Welcome, everyone. For the people with visual impairment, I'm going to give you the audio description. We are in Hongdae, the northwest region of Seoul, and we are complying with the COVID prevention guidelines. So we are separating from each other with the partition. And my height is 176 centimeters, and I'm wearing a blue framed glasses, and I have slight curly hair, and I have an average build. Nice to meet you all. So I'm the creative director of PAMS. So today I'm going to talk with the three people with me. So could you please introduce yourself briefly? First with Director Saung Hong. Hello, I'm the Director of Performing Arts Division at CAMS, Korea Arts Management Service, Saung Hong. And next, Soo Hye-jang, the PAMS connector for dance. Hello everyone, I'm Soo Hye-jang, the PAMS connector for dance, and I'm working as an independent producer. And this year's PAMS Choice artist, General Kunst Hye-ryung Lee. Hello everyone, I'm from General Kunst, artist Hye-ryung Lee. So I'm working on audience participatory theater outside the theater. Thank you for joining everyone. First of all, now we're going to have some time talking about this year's PAMS with the three people. How was the PAMS this year? First, Sang Ho, director of CAMS. Could you comment on PAMS 2021? So, to talk about PAMS in general, I think those of you who participated in PAMS last year will agree with me. So last year we did virtual PAMS in a virtual space with kind of machine touch. But this year's PAMS, online PAMS, I think it had more of a realistic and human touch. That's the general impression of this year's PAMS. And actually, what we planned and expected for this year's PAMS was a hybrid of face-to-face and non-face-to-face format. So I feel it's quite unfortunate that it was conducted only non-face-to-face like last year. And in the case of Journey to Korean Music, we are also conducting face-to-face event. And I think it was really a great success. We really had good response from the audience. I could feel that myself. And I almost thought like it was before the pandemic. But what is different from the last year is that all the participants had to undergo the PCR test, COVID test 3 times during their stay. So this was the biggest difference from the last year's PAMS. And I expect that we'll be able to hold live PAMS from next year as we have been doing in our old days. But even if that happens, I think online PAMS is here to stay in this pandemic era. And as you all know, we had the real-time conversation, chatting, and interactive information exchange, and a variety of business presentation methods, and I think you got familiar with this format. Above all, the organizers find this format quite appealing since we can utilize an automatic tool to analyze the interests and patterns of the participants of PAMS. And now we are using this platform PAMS on for our online PAMS event. And I think it will not just be considered as a substitute during the pandemic era, but also a complementary format to be continued even after the pandemic situation. Thank you very much. So during the PAMS period, the most common word that people were talking about was hybrid. So even after the pandemic, maybe we're going to use hybrid format, combination of the physical and digital format. So we had 5 PAMS connectors this year, and we are now joined with the dance PAMS connector, and she was actively working to connect the domestic artists with international artists. So let me ask her how she felt about this year's PAMS. So the hybrid format was quite impressive for me. So for those of you who watched the PAMS event, it was digital for you, but actually for us, the panelists and discussants and presenters, we gathered together in person. And I also participated in the Journey to Korean Music event, and I could learn a lot that I couldn't feel in the digital space. And what we miss out on the offline event is that about the fields that are different from mine, some other fields we couldn't focus on that, but thanks to the virtual format, digital format, I could also experience other types of industries and other types of formats too, thanks to the salon and other types of programs. But in this virtual space and digital space, we need to be more focused, and there are some situations where we cannot connect with the people from abroad. Sometimes they don't answer to our messages. So I hope when we get to have more accessibility for everyone, we can take the advantage of this virtual space and digital space. But anyways, I could talk with some people from abroad by using the chat function, and that was the positive part of this event. Thank you very much. So this year's PAMS, there were 13 groups of artist organizations. So they were wondering how we can connect with the digital space. So I think many of the organizations did this, but General Kunst and artist Hae-ryung Lee really thought about how she can connect her artwork with the digital space. So now let me ask her, how was it to participate in PAMS as PAMS Choice Art Organization, and what encounters and findings did you have through the online platform? So actually, it was my first time participating in PAMS and PAMS On. So many things were not that familiar to me, and there were new things that I found. So in the process of preparation, I was wondering how I should present the performance. And in the process of implementing the performance, I faced with many difficulties. But after the event began, I could follow the schedule quite well, and I could present my work. And like Suya mentioned, in other events and other festivals, for other artworks, I couldn't focus on other people's work of other types, but I could refer to the interviews and archives of the artworks for this event, so I could learn a lot from them. And of course, I would have enjoyed much more in in-person event. But anyways, thanks to the online platform, there was less language barrier for me because I could just text what I wanted to say to the other overseas presenters. And I really enjoyed the salon session, and I also suggested having conversation with them. I'm glad to hear that. So we always have a silver lining in our darkest times. So despite the difficulties, we had good connection with other artists. We could talk with other artists. So hearing to you saying that, I'm really glad and happy. So from now on, let's see what are the changes that we are going to have next year for PAMS 2022.
First, let me talk about its structure that we will have next year. Let's take a look at the slide. In the middle, you can see PAMS. PAMS in October. We will continue holding PAMS in October. But on the left, you can see PAMS on as well. Director Hong touched on this matter. Even after the pandemic, we need to look at digital technologies in the contemporary era. We need to pay attention to connecting with digital technologies. PAMS On in this regard will have three topics: connecting with Asia via Shared Asia, and there will be program to meet with artists in Asia, and it will be conducted online. Second, on Next Mobility, we will talk about mobility in performing arts sector. This question will be investigated. Third, we will have Korea Now program. This will be about looking into contemporary nature of performing arts, and we will introduce program via Air Meet, which will be bi-monthly program. There will be a round table as well. We will also have the Apro, which is web magazine that you can find online. On the right, you can see PAMS season. This is new. Suye Chang will explain more about PAMS season. Alright. So PAMS is a platform for all genres. There are many festivals, and PAMS Link connected many programs and festivals, but there are other festivals and theaters. There are other performances. So people wonder what's POP, what's PAMS, and what's the other festivals. So from next year, we want to have more official partnership, and this will be linked with PAMS as well. Next year, we will focus on dance. Next slide, please. PAMS season 2022 dance. Well, we have various partners in Korea. C-Dance in Seoul, Bidam in Busan, SDC in Seoul, KNCDC in Korea, and there will be independent producers as well. We have international collaborations: European Dance Network, Airwaves, the Dance Network. We also have Hot Pot in Asia, which is a dance platform, and we will be also joined by CNARS. Our themes are not fully decided yet, but we are about to discuss various themes. This year, the focus was on technology. We listened to RSC about various case studies. But in Korea, we are discussing art and technologies, and various platforms are being developed as well. So we're going to look into what happens in Korea in more detail. Also, we will look into emerging artists, which was the theme today. In Korea, we're also talking about diversity a lot. Therefore, we will explore arts and disability. Due to the pandemic, people do not visit theater often. But people still want to go outside. That's why we will look into public space. There are more perspectives about public space and outdoor space. Also, as Director Choi just mentioned, we have Shared Asia. Europe is a continent, but Asia is not really a continent. We have different languages. We are far away from each other. Still, from last year at PAMS, we've been working with the platforms in Asia, and we are discussing with the platforms. There are many platforms in Asia about dance. Last but not least, at this year's PAMS, we talked about climate change and climate crisis. There will be further discussion on climate crisis. Based on these themes, we are planning to have various programs including dance performance, showcase, workshop, roundtable, and venue visits. With BDAM, we have partnership, so we are planning to visit to the region. If it's not possible, we are planning to use video. So these are our plans. Thank you for sharing the plan. From now on, well, artists matter the most in arts, right? At this year's PAMS, we began the session with lyrics of Cheap Android 2 by Byung-jun Kwon, media artist. It was live performance as well. So we'd like to hear from Hye-ryung Lee from General Kunst. And before that, let's watch video clip of Picket Line from General Kunst. Can we play the video now? Good. I have prepared a few questions. First, Picket Line verbalizes narratives of people who are not verbalized. It offered a chance for us to rethink about exclusion and isolation. In the world after the pandemic, arts and their role might change. I was asking this question. There's diversity in arts, which is inevitable. As a creator, how do you imagine the relationship between arts and society? Many people are asking, you're asking this question continuously, right? Hye-ryung Lee, what's your thought on role of arts and artists in society? How is it changing?
Actually, this is something I think about a lot, but it's quite difficult to answer too. So I did this picket line artwork this year. So I was thinking about the social role that the artwork can play, and actually the thoughts themselves is the driving force that keeps me working. As you mentioned before, there are some people whose words are not verbalized, and I wanted to integrate their words and language in my artwork, and that was one of the a big thing on my artwork. But actually, this picket line artwork was planned as a proxy protest for those who didn't or cannot participate in protests, but because of the pandemic situation, it couldn't be installed in the plaza, so it had to be delivered to the National Assembly using the postal service. And one of the lawmakers who participated in our project said the National Assembly is a place of full words. Maybe this place is only about words. So it was a special event that brought about new words to this place. So it was. It had to have some different opinions of the society, and I could learn that there are different perspectives and different words that could be told in the society. And thinking about this was one way to expand my work.
So question coming from artists can lead to a lot of implications for audience. I think that's why it matters. What do you think about contemporary society and arts? Do you have any theme that you want to touch on?
Actually, there's one topic that I'm thinking about a lot. It's about the theater, the citizens, the audience, and the relationship between this, and how I can translate them into my artwork. So, the hypothetic title for my work is Theater Apocalypse. So, it's based on the idea that we want to prevent the collapse of the theater, but if we just continue as business usual, the theater will come to an apocalypse. That's the basic idea. So, that's what I'm working on with other people. So, when it comes to my artwork, I'm a writer, audience, and a planner, and I'm also a member of the society. But when I think of these roles, I get to think about the gaps and differences and some overlapping parts of each role. And I think theater, this topic is very interesting. So that's what I wanted to convey into my work.
It might be a little shocking to hear that for those working at theater. I heard about a program called When Theater Becomes Unnecessary. How a Theater Becomes Unnecessary, that was the name. It was like a satire. I think it was a satire. So those in theater, don't worry too much. And next question could be a challenge. It might be difficult. This year, Picket Line invited audience to join online. And the core theme was about international mobility after the pandemic at PAMS. At PAMS, we had many ideas about mobility. We talked about digital mobility and other media and other channels. Hyung Lee, what's your thought about digital mobility or other forms of mobility? What do you think we have in terms of mobility? It could be difficult.
So the term international mobility feels like it's a very big word, a difficult word. So for the last 4 days of PAMS, what I learned is that the international mobility, this concept, actually I can very relate with this concept. It gives me the thoughts, how can I approach the audience? So in that sense, when I'm working on the showcase, the most critical part is the place. So in the process of thinking about this, I also use some Google Earth and other Google platforms to invite the audience to participate in my artwork. And I'm not sure how I can develop on this. Actually, this was my first attempt using this. So maybe I can use some existing platforms and see what's lacking in the existing system, because I tried to use the Google spreadsheet and the platform for my picket line. So I want to see what's possible with the existing system so that I can meet the audience in the virtual space.
So there will be new formats. We have great expectations for you, and thank you for your answer. 2021 PAMS presented a topic which was about international mobility and circulation after the pandemic. When the pandemic is over, we might have free flow of physical mobility and less restrictions. We might be able to return to traditional format of greeting audience. Still, we need to ask fundamental question, which is about exploring different and diverse ways. In specific, we should revisit diversity of arts and climate crisis by shifting perspectives. London International Festival of Theatre Lift introduced concept touring, and RSC introduced multiple experiments of mobility. Climate Change Theatre Action also made presentation about their artistic practice. Boram Kim and Blooming Lotus in Korea demonstrated how they create art. We can see how artists can be creative when they practice and when they respond to climate change. Also, regarding international mobility, we had a lot of discussions and we talked about climate change at PAMS. General Kunst met with the audience in digital format by introducing Picket Line. We just saw it. And this morning, we heard about Finding Pandora X by Kira Benjing. This was a case that uses multiple technologies to create and have digital mobility. As you can see from the slide, we have Next Mobility. PAMS will continue to ask questions about Next Mobility and circulation. We want to continue this platform to link our imagination as artists. Imagination of artists and people will be connected here. Also, we will become international platform for performing arts, seeking cooperation and solidarity. Thank you again for joining us. And I really want to thank you. I have many people to extend my gratitude to. I want to thank the artists and groups in PAM's Choice. Thanks to you, we were able to have arts at PAMS. I want to thank our colleagues from literally all over the world who shared insight and experience in PAMS Salon and Next Mobility Session. And my thanks goes to the teams here, including from A, Yellow Bomb, technicians, and many people as well. Also, for the past 4 days, we had translators who served as bridges. I also want to thank I want to express my gratitude to the 5 PAMS connectors. Most of all, huge thanks goes to the secretariat who is behind the scene. Thank you. Also, most importantly, I want to thank you from Bali, from Iran, Canada, Montreal, Japan, Taiwan, Queensland in Australia. We were joined by many people from all over the world. We were delighted to have you at PAMS. Today, the programs are concluded, but you can find the PAMS on PAMSON until October 31st. You can join PAMS via PAMSON until the end of October, and we will see you next year in 2022 PAMS. Thank you.